The fabric tightened suddenly around Nneka's waist, so sharp and unexpected that she gasped out loud. Her hand flew instinctively to her lower stomach as she stumbled backward, nearly knocking over the basin of water beside her. The room was quiet, too quiet. Just seconds ago, she had been humming softly while rinsing her clothes in the dim hostel bathroom. Now her heartbeat thundered in her ears.
No!
No, not again.
Not again!
She whispered. The tightening wasn't painful yet. It never started that way. It was more like a warning squeeze, firm and deliberate, as though invisible fingers were gripping her body from beneath her clothes. Nneka froze, breath held, listening. Nothing. No footsteps in the hallway. No voices. No sudden sound that could explain the panic racing through her veins. Slowly, carefully, she eased herself onto the edge of the bench and waited. 5 seconds passed. Then 10. The pressure loosened. Nneka exhaled shakily, wiping sweat from her forehead. Whatever it was, it had passed. For now. She didn't smile. She didn't laugh it off anymore. She had learned better. Because every single time the underwear tightened like that, danger followed. And it had never been wrong. It hadn't always been this way. Once, it had been just underwear, plain, unremarkable, folded neatly in a brown paper bag and handed to her by a woman she had never seen before and would never forget. It happened 3 months earlier, on a bright afternoon that looked completely harmless. Nneka had been hurrying across the market square, her phone pressed between her ear and shoulder as she argued with her younger sister. "I said I'll send the money tomorrow," she snapped. "Do you think I'm printing it?" People bumped into her from every direction. Traders shouted prices. Motorcycles weaved through narrow spaces like reckless insects. She wasn't watching where she was going. That was how she almost collided with the old woman. "Careful, child," the woman said calmly. Nneka stopped short, irritation already on her tongue. "I'm sorry, she paused. The woman stood strangely still amid the chaos, like the noise bent around her instead of touching her. She was old, very old, with skin like folded parchment and eyes that were too sharp for her age. Her headscarf was faded, her clothes simple, but there was something unsettling about how composed she looked. The woman studied Nneka's face intently. "You are walking toward trouble," she said. Nneka frowned. "Excuse me." The woman reached into the bag hanging from her arm and pulled out a small, folded parcel wrapped in thin paper. "Take this." Nneka shook her head immediately. "No, thank you." The woman's grip tightened around the parcel. "You must." People brushed past them, annoyed glances thrown in their direction. Nneka felt suddenly exposed, like the old woman was seeing more than she should. "I don't know you," Nneka said, her voice firm. The woman leaned closer. Her breath smelled faintly of herbs and smoke. "You will live because of this," she whispered. "But only if you listen." Against her better judgment, Nneka took the parcel. "What is it?" she asked.
What is it?
Protection, the woman replied.
Do not remove it.
Wear it.
Not for being.
Do not
For anyone.
remove it.
Protection.
Not
Wear
for
it.
sleep.
Do not remove
Not
it.
for bathing.
Not for being.
Not for anyone. Nneka laughed nervously. "You're joking." The old woman's expression did not change. "When it tightens, danger is near. When it loosens, you are safe. If you take it off," she paused, eyes darkening, "there will be no warning next time." A chill crept down Nneka's spine. This is insane. But when she looked up again, the woman was already walking away, swallowed by the crowd as if she had never been there. Nneka stood there for a long moment, the parcel warm in her hands. That night, she unfolded it. Underwear. Plain cotton. Old-fashioned. Nothing special. She almost threw it away. Almost. But something stopped her. She wore it to bed, telling herself it was just to prove how ridiculous the whole thing was. She planned to remove it in the morning and laugh about it with her roommate. In the early hours of dawn, the tightening woke her. She sat bolt upright, heart racing, the fabric gripping her body hard enough to steal her breath. Then she heard it. A loud crash from the hallway. Shouting. Someone screaming. Minutes later, security sirens blared. A gas cylinder explosion in the adjacent block. 2 students injured. 1 nearly killed. Nneka sat frozen on her bed, hand shaking, as the pressure slowly released. That was the first time. After that, it happened again. And again. Before a knee accident at a busy intersection. Before a stair railing collapsed beneath someone else's feet. Before a stranger tried to follow her home late one night. Always the tightening. Always the warning. And now, 3 months later, Nneka no longer questioned it. She feared it. She rinsed her clothes quickly, her movements stiff with anxiety, and left the bathroom. As she reached her room, her roommate Sade looked up from her phone. "You look pale," Sade said.
You look pale.
"Are you okay?"
Do you ever feel like
Nneka
something bad is about
hesitated.
to happen? Even
Do
when
you ever
everything
feel
looks
like
normal?
something
That's
bad is
called
about to
stress.
happen, even when everything looks normal? Sade laughed lightly. "That's called stress." Nneka forced a smile and said nothing. Because how could she explain that the thing guarding her life was also slowly imprisoning her? And how could she admit the terrifying truth she had begun to suspect? That the underwear didn't just sense danger. It attracted it. The tightening returned that same night, stronger than before. Nneka was halfway through brushing her teeth when it happened. Not a warning squeeze this time, but a slow, deliberate constriction that wrapped around her like a coiled rope being pulled tighter inch by inch. She gripped the sink, toothpaste foam sliding down her chin as panic surged. "Not now," she muttered. "Please, not now." She leaned closer to the mirror, searching her reflection as if it might explain what her body already knew. Her eyes looked wider than usual, whites showing, pupils stretched thin. She rinsed her mouth quickly and listened. The hallway outside was quiet. Too quiet. The pressure intensified. Her door handle rattled. Nneka spun around just as the handle stilled. She stood frozen, heart hammering, staring at the door as though it might burst open on its own. After a long moment, footsteps retreated down the corridor. Laughter followed. Someone joking loudly. Normal life continuing without pause. The tightening eased. Nneka slid down against the wall and sat on the floor, hugging her knees. Her hands trembled violently now, adrenaline refusing to drain away. This was new. The warnings were happening earlier. Stronger. Closer. It was as if the thing was growing impatient. The next morning, she woke up exhausted, dark shadows beneath her eyes. Sade noticed immediately. "You didn't sleep again," she said, tying her hair in front of the mirror. "You're going to collapse one of these days." "I'm fine," Nneka replied automatically. "You've been saying that a lot." Nneka forced herself to meet Sade's gaze. "Have you ever felt watched?" she asked quietly. Sade paused. "Watched how?" "Like, something is paying attention to you. Waiting." Sade laughed awkwardly. "Okay, that's creepy. Did you watch one of those horror stories again last night?" Nneka didn't answer. Later that day, as she walked across campus, the tightening returned. This time, it came in pulses. Tight. Release. Tight again. Her steps slowed as dread crawled up her spine. She scanned the crowd, every face suddenly suspicious. Students laughed, argued, checked their phones. Nothing looked wrong. Then a shout. A car jumped the curb ahead of her, tires screeching, skidding wildly before crashing into a lamppost. People screamed and scattered. Nneka stood rooted to the ground as the pressure loosened once more. Her legs gave out. Someone helped her to a bench. Someone asked if she was hurt. She nodded numbly and said she was fine. She always said that. But inside, something had shifted. This wasn't just protection anymore. It was control. That night, she finally tried to remove it. She waited until Sade was asleep, the room dark except for the faint glow from the streetlight outside. Her fingers hovered at her waistband, heart racing, guilt and fear wrestling inside her chest. "I just need a break," she whispered to herself. "Just one night." The moment she pulled it down even slightly, pain exploded through her abdomen. Not physical pain exactly. More like pressure turning inward, crushing her breath, her thoughts, her sense of balance. She gasped and doubled over, clutching herself. The room felt wrong. The air thickened. The shadows along the walls seemed to stretch, lean closer. Her ears rang with a low hum that made her teeth ache. "Okay," she cried. "Okay. I'm sorry." She pulled it back up with shaking hands. The pressure vanished instantly. The room returned to normal. Shadows stilled. The hum faded. Nneka lay there sobbing silently, tears soaking her pillow. There was no mistaking it now. She wasn't choosing to wear it anymore. She was being allowed to. From that night on, the warnings became more frequent. Sometimes subtle. Sometimes overwhelming. She learned to read them like a language. Short tightening meant caution, prolonged pressure meant immediate danger. Her life shrank accordingly. She stopped going out at night. Avoided crowded places. Declined invitations. People noticed. "You're acting strange," Sade said one evening. "You disappear randomly. You freeze up like you're hearing things." "I'm just tired," Nneka replied. "Tired of what?" Sade pressed. "You can talk to me." Nneka almost did. The words sat on her tongue, heavy and dangerous. She imagined saying it out loud. "There's something I'm wearing that tells me when I'm about to die." She swallowed instead. "It's nothing." Sade's face fell slightly. "You don't trust me." That night, the tightening returned while Nneka lay awake, staring at the ceiling. It didn't loosen. Minutes passed. Then more. Her breathing grew shallow. Fear crept in, cold and sharp. "What is it?" she whispered into the darkness. "What do you want me to see?" A knock sounded at the door. 3 sharp taps. Nneka's heart lurched. The pressure intensified painfully, stealing her breath. "Nneka." Sade's voice came through the door. "Are you awake?" The tightening loosened just enough for her to breathe. She frowned. That wasn't danger. That was. Understanding hit her like ice water. The thing wasn't warning her about Sade. It was warning her about what she might say. "Go to sleep," Nneka called back, voice strained. "I'm fine." There was a pause. "Okay," Sade said softly. "Good night." As the footsteps retreated, the pressure finally eased. Nneka stared at the ceiling, horror dawning fully now. It wasn't just sensing danger in the world. It was protecting itself. And if you're feeling the tension rising right now, if your heart is beating a little faster as this story unfolds, take a second, like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and stay with the story. Because what Nneka was about to discover would change everything she thought she knew about safety and survival. She turned onto her side and whispered into the dark, "Who are you?" The underwear did not answer. But somewhere, far away, or perhaps very close, something listened. And waited. Nneka stopped trying to understand it after that night. Understanding required distance, and distance was something the thing around her waist no longer allowed. She moved through her days cautiously now, like someone walking across thin ice. Every step was measured. Every decision filtered through the quiet question she never voiced out loud. Will it tighten? Sometimes it did for reasons she couldn't explain. A stranger staring too long on the bus. A lecturer calling her name unexpectedly. A phone call from an unknown number. Each time, the fabric would tense, not enough to hurt, but enough to command her attention. Enough to remind her who was in control. She stopped wearing jeans because they pressed against it and made the tightening worse. She changed how she sat, how she slept, how she breathed. The underwear dictated everything, and the more she obeyed, the more sensitive it became. Or maybe it was learning her. One afternoon, Sade finally snapped. "You've been avoiding me," she said flatly, blocking the doorway as Nneka tried to leave the room. "I'm late," Nneka replied, keeping her voice calm. "No. You're hiding." Sade crossed her arms. "You flinch when I touch you. You lock the bathroom door even when I'm alone. You wake up at night like you're being chased." Nneka felt the familiar pressure begin to form. Not tight yet. Just present. "Sade, please," she said. "Move. Tell me what's going on." The tightening sharpened. Nneka's breath hitched. "I can't." That's not an answer. The pressure increased, wrapping firmer now, deliberate, almost angry. Pain flickered at the edges of her vision. "Move," Nneka whispered, panic leaking into her voice. Sade hesitated, then stepped aside. "You need help," she said quietly. Nneka rushed past her and didn't look back. That evening, the old woman returned. Nneka knew it was her the moment the tightening eased instead of worsening. She was seated on a bench near the campus gate, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the setting sun. She looked exactly the same as before. Unchanged. Untouched by time. Nneka approached slowly, every instinct screaming both relief and terror. You, Nneka said. You did this to me. The old woman turned her head slightly. I saved you. You trapped me, Nneka snapped. I can't take it off. It hurts when I try. The woman nodded once. Because it is awake now. Nneka's stomach dropped. Awake. It was dormant, the woman said calmly. Bound. Quiet. You have fed it fear, obedience, dependence. I didn't ask for this, Nneka said, her voice breaking. You didn't tell me the truth. The old woman finally looked at her fully. You wouldn't have listened. Nneka laughed bitterly. So this is what? Protection at the cost of my life. No, the woman said. Protection at the cost of your illusion of control. What is it? Nneka demanded. What am I wearing? The old woman was silent for a long moment. Then she said, a sentinel. Nneka stared at her. That doesn't mean anything. It will, the woman replied. When the danger stops coming from outside. Nneka felt cold. What happens if I take it off? The woman's gaze hardened. Then you will learn why it chose you. Chose me? Nneka echoed. You are already marked, the woman said softly. It only made it visible. Before Nneka could ask what that meant, the tightening returned suddenly, violent, crushing, stealing the air from her lungs. She cried out and bent forward, clutching herself. Why? She gasped. What's happening? The old woman stood. Someone is coming. Someone who will try to separate you from it. Who? Nneka choked. The woman stepped back into the shadows. Trust the warning, not your comfort.
Not your comfort.
And then she was gone. That night, Nneka dreamed of hands. Hands pulling. Hands gripping. Hands trying to peel something away from her body while she screamed and screamed, her voice swallowed by darkness. She woke up drenched in sweat, the pressure still present, humming faintly like a restrained growl. A knock sounded at the door. Her heart leapt. The tightening intensified immediately, more violently than ever before. Nneka, Sade's voice called. Open the door. No, Nneka whispered. I'm worried about you. The pressure spiked sharply, pain blooming. Nneka staggered back. Please go away. The door handle turned. She screamed. Sade burst in, eyes wide. What's wrong? What's happening to you? Don't touch me. Nneka cried, backing away. Sade froze. Nneka, you're scaring me. The tightening was unbearable now, crushing, punishing. Nneka collapsed to her knees, sobbing, gasping for air. Get away from me, she screamed. Please. Sade stared at her, tears welling up. I was just trying to help. As Sade stepped back, the pressure eased slightly. Nneka looked up, horror fully blooming. It reacted to intent. That was when Nneka understood the most terrifying truth yet. The underwear wasn't sensing danger. It was deciding what danger was. And if this realization just hit you like it hit Amara, if you're starting to question what safety really means, stay with the story. Comment below what you think the real danger is, because what comes next will test Nneka in ways she never imagined. She curled into herself on the floor, whispering over and over, I didn't choose this. I didn't choose this. But the sentinel did not loosen. It was preparing her. And soon, it would demand a choice. Nneka stopped going to classes after that night. She told herself it was temporary, that she just needed time to think, to breathe. But the truth was simpler and far more frightening. She no longer trusted her own judgment. Every choice felt dangerous now. Every interaction carried invisible consequences. The tightening guided her day. When it was loose, she stayed still. When it pulled tight, she obeyed. She barely spoke to anyone. Messages went unanswered. Calls rang until they stopped. Sade moved out 2 days later, unable to live with the silence, the tension, the way Nneka flinched like a cornered animal. You need help, Sade said at the door, her bag over her shoulder. I know, Nneka replied quietly. Sade hesitated. Let me help you. The tightening surged sharply, instantly, like a warning bell clamped around Nneka's body. No, Nneka said quickly. Please. Sade searched her face, then nodded slowly.
Okay. She paused.
But don't disappear. The pressure eased only after the door closed behind her. Alone at last, Nneka slid down against the wall and laughed hysterically. The sound cracked halfway through and dissolved into sobbing.
This isn't living, she whispered.
This is surviving. That night, the dreams returned. Stronger, clearer. She dreamed she stood in front of a mirror, naked except for the underwear. The fabric pulsed faintly, almost breathing. When she reached to remove it, the mirror reflection smiled while her real face screamed.
She woke with a gasp. The tightening didn't loosen. Hours passed. Morning light crept in. Still tight.
Nneka sat on the edge of the bed, hands clenched in her lap, mind racing.
What do you want? She whispered. I've done everything.
The answer came not in words, but in sensation. The pressure shifted, not tighter, not looser, but directional.
Pulling her forward. Urging. It wanted her to move. She dressed slowly and stepped outside.
With every step toward the campus gate, the pressure eased slightly, encouraging her. When she turned back, it tightened again. You're guiding me now, she muttered.
It didn't respond. It didn't need to. She followed.
The path led her beyond the campus, past the market square, down a narrow road she had never taken before. With every wrong turn, the pressure corrected her. Left.
Right. Stop. Wait.
By the time she reached the abandoned textile factory at the edge of town, her legs were shaking.
This is insane, she whispered.
The tightening loosened completely.
That terrified her more than anything else.
Inside the factory, the air was stale and heavy. Broken machines stood like skeletons in the shadows. Light filtered through shattered windows, painting long stripes across the floor. You came, the old woman said.
Nneka spun around. Why here?
Because this is where it was made, the woman replied. And where it must be confronted.
Nneka's throat tightened.
You said it was protection. It is, the woman said. But protection is never passive. What does that mean?
Nneka demanded.
The old woman walked closer. It was created to guard against something that feeds on hesitation.
On doubt.
On people who don't trust themselves.
Nneka shook her head.
Then why is it hurting me? Because you keep asking it to choose for you. The tightening returned suddenly, harsh and angry.
Nneka cried out.
I didn't ask for this responsibility. You accepted it the moment you refused to let yourself be vulnerable, the woman said sharply.
You wanted safety without risk.
Certainty without consequence. That's not fair.
Nneka shouted.
The pressure spiked painfully. The woman raised her voice over Nneka's cries. You want to know the truth? It tightens when danger is near, but danger is not always external. Sometimes, danger is the part of you that wants to stop deciding. The pressure stopped. Nneka collapsed to her knees, panting. You mean, it reacts to me? She whispered. Yes, the woman said softly. It mirrors your fear.
It amplifies it.
It punishes surrender. Tears streamed down Nneka's face.
Then why won't it let me take it off?
Because you are not finished, the woman replied. The sentinel only releases those who reclaim their agency.
Nneka looked up sharply. How? The woman stepped back.
By choosing, without waiting for the warning. Before Nneka could respond, footsteps echoed from the entrance. Sade's voice called out, Nneka.
The tightening slammed down brutally. Nneka screamed. Sade, leave, she shouted. Please. Sade rushed in anyway. I followed you. You just walked off.
The pressure became unbearable. Nneka doubled over, gasping, vision blurring.
Don't touch me, she cried. Sade froze in shock.
Nneka, what's happening to you? The old woman's voice cut through the chaos. This is the test. What test?
Nneka sobbed. Choose, the woman said, without listening. Sade stepped forward cautiously.
Nneka, I don't understand, but I'm here. Let me help you.
The tightening roared in protest. Nneka squeezed her eyes shut. Her entire body shook.
If she listened, she would push Sade away.
If she didn't.
Stop, Nneka whispered. Just stop.
She forced herself to stand and took a step toward Sade.
The pressure tightened viciously, burning, punishing. Nneka screamed through the pain and took another step. Nneka!
Sade cried.
Don't listen to it, Nneka said through clenched teeth.
Please. She reached out.
The tightening reached its peak, a crushing force that stole her breath and dropped her to one knee.
But she didn't retreat. She made the choice. And suddenly, silence.
The pressure vanished completely. Nneka collapsed into Sade's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. The old woman watched quietly from a distance, her face unreadable.
It's not over, she said.
But now, it listens to you. If your heart is pounding right now, if you're wondering whether Nneka truly escaped or only delayed something worse, stay with the story. Like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and brace yourself, because the final choice is still ahead. Nneka clung to Sade, shaking. For the first time in months, the sentinel was quiet.
Too quiet. Nneka stayed with Sade that night.
Not because she felt safe, safety had become a fragile word, but because she needed to remember what it felt like to choose proximity over isolation. The sentinels stayed silent as they lay on opposite sides of the bed, the space between them heavy with things unsaid. You scared me today, Sade whispered into the dark.
I know, Nneka replied.
I'm sorry.
Sade turned toward her.
You don't have to explain everything.
Just don't shut me out. Nneka nodded, even though Sade couldn't see it.
I'll try. Sleep came in fragments. Each time Nneka drifted, she felt the faintest hum against her skin, not a tightening, not a warning, just awareness.
Like a presence listening. Morning arrived pale and quiet.
Nneka sat up slowly, waiting for the pressure to assert itself.
It didn't.
She breathed out, surprised by the simple act of standing without fear. She showered, carefully, half expecting punishment.
Nothing happened.
The silence followed her like a shadow that refused to bite.
On the walk back to campus, she made choices on purpose. She took a different path.
She crossed the street without waiting for a signal from her body. Each decision felt like stepping off a cliff and discovering the ground still held.
By afternoon, she almost believed it was over. That was when the email arrived. The subject line was plain, urgent, about your safety.
Her chest tightened, not from the sentinel, but from herself.
She opened it.
You don't know me, but I know what you're wearing.
Meet me tonight. If you don't, you'll regret it. Her phone vibrated once more.
A location pin dropped.
Nneka's mouth went dry.
She waited for the tightening. It didn't come.
The silence was a verdict.
I'm not doing this, she told herself, pacing. I'm not.
But the words felt hollow. She packed a small bag anyway. She didn't tell Sade where she was going, only that she'd be back soon. Sade watched her with worry and didn't argue.
The location led her to the riverbank, where the city thinned into long shadows and rusted railings. The old textile factory loomed across the water, black against the sky.
A figure stood near the railing. Not the old woman.
You came, the man said without turning. Nneka stopped a few steps away.
Who are you? He faced her.
His smile was thin, knowing. Someone who didn't listen in time. The sentinel stirred faintly, like a breath drawn. I wore it, he continued, tapping his waist. Years ago. Thought it would keep me safe.
Thought it would decide for me.
I let it.
Nneka's throat tightened.
What happened? It chose, he said. And I agreed.
Every time.
Until there was nothing left of me that could choose anything else. Why me?
Nneka asked.
Because you didn't surrender, he said. Because you pushed back. The pressure nudged her, soft, insistent, toward him.
No, she said.
Not now.
He laughed quietly. It wants to return to its rule. To certainty.
What do you want?
Nneka demanded. To take it off, he said simply.
For both of us. The tightening surged, angry and sharp.
Nneka stepped back. You can't.
I can, he said, and lunged. She screamed as his hands grabbed at her clothes. Pain flared as the sentinel constricted, fighting. Nneka stumbled, slammed into the railing.
The river roared below. Stop, she cried. You don't need this. He strained against the pressure, teeth bared. You don't understand.
Silence is worse.
Nneka's vision blurred. The pressure spiked, then wavered. She remembered the factory. The choice. The pain she endured when she didn't listen. She stopped struggling. No, she said calmly.
I choose.
The tightening halted. The man froze, eyes wide. Nneka pushed him away with everything she had.
He stumbled back, overbalanced, and fell into the dark water with a splash that vanished too quickly. She stood there shaking, waiting for the pressure to punish her.
It didn't.
The sentinel loosened completely, a final release that felt like a knot untied. Nneka collapsed to her knees, sobbing, not from fear, but from relief so deep it hurt. When she returned to Sade's place, dawn was breaking. It's done, Nneka said softly.
Sade pulled her into a hug without questions.
Days passed. Then weeks.
Nneka learned to live with choice again.
The underwear stayed, but it no longer commanded. It responded, subtle, quiet, respectful.
Sometimes it warned. Sometimes it stayed silent and trusted her to decide. The old woman never returned.
Months later, Nneka stood at the market square where it had all begun. A young girl hurried past, distracted, nearly colliding with her.
Nneka caught her elbow gently.
Careful, Nneka said. The girl smiled, thanked her, and moved on. Nneka watched her go, heart steady. She turned away. And if this story kept you listening to the end, if it made you question the cost of certainty and the power of choosing for yourself, take a moment, like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more stories that linger long after the screen goes dark.